Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some tough love truths about why people treat you the way they do. We're breaking down entrepreneur Layla Hormozi's hard-hitting framework on personal power and boundaries. So, if you've ever felt talked over or just completely undervalued, stick around because her take on how respect actually works is an absolute game changer.
I want you to honestly ask yourself this question right now. Do you actually know what self respect looks like? It's kind of a tough one, right? Well, a frustrated female executive had to face this exact question when she complained to Layla that her colleagues were constantly talking over her. And her honest answer? It was no. You see, we're so quick to point fingers at everyone else, completely unaware of the signals we're actively broadcasting to the world.
In this explainer, we are going to completely dismantle your current understanding of boundaries. Here's our playbook. First, the big respect lie. Then, measure people by their cost, followed by self-respect is a system, consequences over conversations, and finally, never argue for respect.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, the big respect lie. We're going to start by shattering the absolute biggest myth you've probably been sold since childhood, that respect is something you can just go out and earn from other people. It's a complete paradigm shift. You don't earn respect, you've set the standard for it. And honestly, most people set the bar way too low. They walk into rooms literally begging to be respected by a boss or a partner. But here's the thing. Begging for validation from people is actually the fastest way to lose it entirely. You absolutely cannot get respect just by asking for it. In reality, other people respecting you is just a lagging indicator of how much you respect yourself. Think about it kind of like the stock market. A trend has to change before the lagging indicator actually moves. That means the rest of the world eventually catches up to your boundaries, but you have to be the one to go first. You've got to maintain it internally before anyone external is ever going to mirror it back to you. And if you don't realize this, you get trapped right in this toxic cycle. Remember that female executive? Well, when she tried to force respect, she fell right into this loop. Someone disrespected her, she felt small and angry. And then she tried way harder to prove her worth by raising her voice and being rude in meetings. She was acting like she was at war with her own team. And the tragic irony of it all, by trying to appease others and force their respect through unnatural behavior, she actually lost even more of her own self-respect in the process. Which perfectly brings us to part two, measure people by their cost. So, this principle forces us to stop judging people by the big game they talk and start measuring them by what they actually cost us, mentally and emotionally. Just because someone is in your life doesn't mean they belong there. You have to run them through this exact evaluation filter. Ask yourself, do I like who I am around them? Do they elevate me or derail me? Does my behavior align with my values? Because if someone makes it harder for you to behave like the person you want to be, I don't care how charming or important they are simply too expensive to keep in your life. You've probably heard this definition of insanity before, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. The crucial takeaway here is that you literally cannot manage up a toxic boss, and you aren't going to magically change a cheating partner. You just don't control their behavior. You have to change the situation by leaving. Waiting around and expecting them to suddenly see your worth just keeps you trapped in the insanity. You change the environment by doing something completely different. All right, let's move into part three, self-respect is a system. This is the absolute core of today's explainer. You have to realize that self-respect isn't some abstract, warm and fuzzy feeling you just wish for. It is a highly rigid system. You don't feel self-respect, you do self-respect. It's built on a foundation of daily choices. And that begins with the most non-negotiable rule of all, keeping your word to yourself. I mean, if you tell yourself you're going to do something and you just don't do it, how can you possibly be mad when other people break their promises to you? Here are the core behaviors you have to follow. And let's talk about what leaving unaligned environments and choosing discomfort actually looks like in practice. For Layla, it meant moving out of a house at 18 because her roommates were constantly partying and doing drugs, and that just didn't align with her values. Later, at 21, choosing discomfort meant walking right out on a lucrative gym job because a manager told her to pull down her shirt to sell to older men. She walked away, choosing the massive discomfort of not knowing how she'd pay rent over completely abandoning her own dignity. And this brilliantly illustrates the danger of what we call emotional vomiting, which is basically speaking impulsively from unmanaged discomfort. Think about it. Yelling at your spouse for forgetting a birthday might feel incredibly satisfying for about 5 seconds, but it doesn't build long-term respect. It just breeds resentment. Speaking truthfully, on the other hand, means making sure your words actually align with the specific outcome you desire.
I love this analogy. Think of self-respect exactly like fitness. You just do it one rep at a time. Every single time you choose not to betray yourself, you are putting in a rep and you're getting stronger. But every time you break a promise to yourself, well, it's basically like eating an entire cake and just hoping your body won't notice. And let's be real, it always notices. You are constantly showing the world exactly how to treat you.
Building right on that fitness analogy, let's step into part 4, consequences over conversations.
So, how do we apply this inner strength outwardly? By realizing that respect is taught by what you accept, not what you explain. Going up to someone and saying, "You need to respect me," is nothing more than empty words if there are absolutely zero consequences for them ignoring you. Nobody disrespects us without our permission. You don't teach people how to treat you by talking at them. You teach them by showing them exactly what happens when they cross the line. Take a look at these scenarios. Nobody is going to respect you unless you demand it through decisive action. If a partner cheats and you just spend a day yelling, what do they learn? That there's no real consequence. If a teammate disrespects you and you just sit there explaining why your feelings are hurt, nothing is going to change. You have to take action. For example, when an employee mocked Layla in a meeting, she didn't yell, she literally just got up and silently walked out. The consequence was immediate, and it resulted in a deeply remorseful apology letter because her silence was 1,000,000 times more powerful than any lecture she could have given.
Which brings us to our final section, part 5, never argue for respect. This is probably the most powerful paradigm shift of all. High respect people never argue. You will absolutely never see a truly confident person begging to be valued. Truly powerful people, they don't rely on dramatic emotional outbursts because they fundamentally understand that screaming doesn't actually teach anyone anything. They've already decided their worth way before they even walked into the room. When that line is crossed, they just leave. You have to decide ahead of time what is going to happen when someone crosses your boundary. You literally pre-program your response. So when they inevitably do cross it, you don't explain, you don't debate, and you certainly don't emotionally vomit. You simply execute that next step and you distance yourself. This is what the Emotional Mastery Playbook looks like in real life. When Layla discovered her college boyfriend had cheated on her, she absolutely shocked him. Not by screaming or crying or ripping his head off, which is probably exactly what he expected. Instead, she calmly stated, "Okay, well, I guess we can't be together." And she ended the relationship right then and there. No fighting. She chose silence and action over a massive conflict, completely preserving her own peace and self-respect. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to remember this. Walking away isn't quitting, it's growing up. Not every single conversation actually needs to be had. And that leaves you with one vital question to answer the very next time someone crosses your boundaries. Will you choose to respect yourself more than the situation? Think really carefully about your answer. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.